Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us here in the United Nations SDG Media Zone. We're broadcasting live on UN Web TV directly from the Web Summit in Lisbon, Portugal. I'm Dan Thomas. I'm the Chief Communication Officer for the UN Global Compact, and I'm pleased to be joined by Anna Gedda, the Chief Sustainability Officer from H&M, and Margaret Molloy, the Chief Marketing Officer from Siegel and Gale, a leading brand strategy firm. And we're here to talk about sustainable style and the SDGs, in the context of the SDGs, circular economies, conscious consumers demanding change in the industry that you're working in, and how companies are making fashion sustainable for all. So Anna, if I could start with you. Some studies have shown that fashion industry is the third largest carbon emitter after energy and agriculture, but it's also been cited as an exaggerated claim. How do you account for the carbon footprint of your industry?
Well, I mean, of course, there are 1,000 different ways you can count on it, but I think, the evidence is clear. The fashion industry has a big part in the climate area. For example, 10% of the global emissions come from the fashion industry. And of course, this is something that we need to recognize and they also need to address, and that we actually do. So what we have done is that we have set a goal to become climate positive by 2040. So meaning that we want to tackle the whole value chain, reduce more emissions than what is responsible for, all the way from the factories to the customers' washing machines.
And you started at the UN, I believe, as an intern, you told me just now.
Yes, I did. Back to the roots.
How has that inspired you to work on sustainability in your industry?
Well, it was actually where that interest started, because I was working with companies who were engaging with the UN in different types of development work in the markets. And that's where I also realized that not only the UN and its important agencies, but also companies could play a really important role in creating the change. And that's how I ended up where I am today.
Great, thank you. Margaret, you're the leading brand strategy firm. Why are you at the Web Summit? What are companies saying about their strategies, the sustainability agenda, the sustainable development goals, and innovation and tech?
So as Chief Marketing Officer of Siegel and Gale, I'm here at the summit to really help the participants understand the role of brand, and within brand in particular, the integral role purpose plays in engaging with consumers.
And are you finding this is an increasing activity, an increasing interest?
Absolutely. Brands are increasingly searching for a purpose that resonates with all of their constituents in terms of their customers, their suppliers, but also importantly their employees. And it's not enough just to have a brand purpose. It has to be authentic and they have to live by that purpose. And our role at Siegel and Gale is really helping brands find their purpose and articulate it in a way that's compelling for all of its constituents, and then frankly creating brand experiences that bring that purpose to life.
Anna, how do you do that at H&M? How do you engage your stakeholders and also your staff in this sort of sustainability journey that you're trying to lead in the company?
Right. So, we've been working with sustainability for the past 20 years, but what we have seen during the past years is really a sharp increase in the interest both from consumers and from colleagues on sustainability. We know meeting those expectations will be key to our future. And I think the feedback that we get from customers and what they want the most is how to make it easy to make it right. How do you as a customer make the right choices? How does it become easy to lead a sustainable life? So our role is really to try to translate the great things that we want to do and find ways for the customers to be part of that journey. And to give you two examples, one is that we have recently launched an initiative called Take Care. It's products, services, and guidance for customers to take better care of their clothes. How do you repair them in an environmentally friendly way? How do you remove stains? How do you do different things that make them have a longer life. And we also have something called garment collecting, which means that you can hand in your unwanted clothes in an H&M store and we will give it a new life. So all of those things are examples of how we try to bring sustainability closer to the customers and make it easier for them to make the right choices.
Yet at the same time, that means that you'll sell less clothes potentially if they're able to repair or clean them better. How does that affect your bottom line and what your shareholders expect?
Well, I mean, we are in a transformation, the whole retail industry. And if we look at the future, I mean, we don't know so much what is going to play out, but we know that by 2030, we're going to be 8.5 billion people on the planet. With the way that we are consuming resources, we will need 2 planets. So we just need to change the way of how we are consuming today. I mean, people will not be naked in 2030. So we just need to find ways of how can we provide fashion and clothes for those to enjoy? What are the new types of business models, the new types of revenue streams, the new types of transactions that can enable that? And I do think that with the size and scale that we have and with the ambitions that we have set, we really have a good chance of leading the way towards that.
Thank you. Margaret, what are companies learning from the Web Summit in terms of the innovation, the technology available to make them more sustainable? How are you seeing this revolution playing out in a place like the Web Summit?
I think there are marvelous technologies on display here, but I think the wise companies are recognizing that those are enablers, that they must, at the heart of their brand, understand what they stand for, and the technologies enable them to bring those stories to life. So technology is a tool, but without having a clear purpose, you're not using it well. And I think most of the savvy companies recognize the distinction between a tool and a story, a purpose and the technology that enables you to bring it to life for your customers.
Anna, you're a leading company. You've been doing this for 20 years, as you say. Do you think the industry is following your lead? Do you think they're going fast enough in their thinking about consumption, sustainability, their impact on climate change and the environment?
Well, I mean, I think looking at the achievements that we have done, I mean, I'm really proud of where we are. I'm also very humble of the fact that we have a long way to go, and so does the whole industry. And there are, of course, also other ones in the industry doing a great job as well. And really the key, which is why I was thinking of also picking number 17, is really because it boils down to collaboration. I mean, we're one of the world's largest fashion retailers, but we represent 2% of the market. So if we're going to have a sustainable fashion industry, we need to work together with the other 98%. And there are some in there that have the same ambitions and they want to do this as much as we do, but then a lot of others who maybe don't want to or don't have the tools or the size and scale. So I think that the most important thing that we can do is really to use the platform that we have and make it easy, not just for the customers to be part of the journey, but also of the other actors that are in the industry. And in that way, you know, pave the way and show how things can be done. I think one example of how we try to do that is when it comes to materials, for example. Today, innovative and sustainable materials are often expensive in the beginning. So what we try to do is really to increase the demand, that increases supply and ultimately brings the prices down so that also smaller players will be able to access that.
Thank you. And Margaret, you're also, as a passion project, fascinated by fashion. What are you doing in the fashion space, and how does that relate to the sustainability agenda?
A few years ago, I started a passion project called Wearing Irish. And the premise of that project was the recognition that consumers are seeking to know the makers, they're seeking to have an appreciation for what they're wearing, they're seeking choice. And coupling that with the insight that the country of Ireland is brimming with talented fashion designers, but nobody was telling that story. And I felt, as a brand marketer who believes in storytelling, that I had a platform. So I elected to create a website, host a number of events, create the hashtag Wearing Irish to tell the world the untold story of Irish fashion designers. And really, the thought process behind that is we live in an era where consumers have choice. And us as brand makers or brand builders, it's our duty to give the consumers access and exposure. and then make an assumption that they will exercise choice in a way that speaks to them. And fashion is one of those gorgeous ways where people can show their identity, and their choices are reflective of them. And my observation was that that opportunity to show Irish fashion wasn't available to them, so my thinking was, tell the story and let the consumers decide.
That's terrific. And Anna, finally, we've got 10 years to achieve the 2030 agenda. We're moving too slowly. The next 10 years has got to see a kind of exponential shift in the way people consume, the way businesses are run, the ambition that they're run with, the way we address the climate crisis. How do you see the next 10 years playing out? How optimistic are you that the fashion industry and your own business can play a role in driving this 2030 agenda?
Well, I am very optimistic, but also acutely aware of the critical state that we are in. But I think the movement that we have started to see during just this past year, not least in terms of climate, I think really is a promise to what we can expect from the future. And I mean, I must say that looking into, the goals that we have set, we know that these are very, ambitious, and that we will need a lot to make it happen. But thinking about what we are seeing right now, I do feel quite confident that we're going to get there. And I think especially with the younger generation that are now entering the market, placing completely different demands on companies, on the governments and many others to act, I think that force and that mobilization is going to be fantastic and a great opportunity for companies like us who really want to sort of use that force and take the lead.
Well, Anna, Gedda, Chief Sustainability Officer from H&M, and Margaret Molloy, CMO from Siegel and Gale, thank you so much for joining us here at the Web Summit at the UN SDG Media Zone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much.